The Romantic movement was one of the most significant and lasting artistic and ideological movements of the 19th century. As with most movements, Romanticism was a reaction to events both contemporary and past. The Enlightenment pushed scientific explanation and rationalization of everything in the natural world, and emphasized logic over emotions. The Industrial Revolution was seen as man's conquering of nature. The Romantic movement rejected these beliefs, instead choosing to focus on the true power and beauty of nature, and the unknown, and the raw emotions it inspires. Many Romantics also felt a renewed sense of pride in their homeland, resulting in the rise of modern nationalism. One of the most revolutionary ideas of Romanticism was the concept that nature could be considered sublime. Sublimity was typically reserved only for religious subjects, so to place such a strong adjective on the natural world was almost unheard of. Horror became a prevalent theme during the Romantic era, soon becoming a favorite emotion for a subject. Romantics loved the supernatural as well, so it is not hard to see how the Gothic movement spawned from Romanticism and can even be considered a sub-movement. I could go on and on about the technicalities and ideas of Romanticism, but I think we can all agree that that would soon become rather boring. Instead, I think Romanticism could be better understood through examples. I put together a selection of my favorite works that I feel embody Romanticism. The first thing that comes to mind when I think of Romanticism is generally the art. Caspar David Friedrich, of course, is the most famous Romantic artist. Wanderer Above the Sea of Fog is easily his best-known work. It truly depicts the pure awe of a natural landscape Romantics love. The fog obscuring parts of the ground creates the feeling of mystery, also giving it a sense of height. The painting is designed to be both exciting and terrifying at the same time. My favorite work of his, and honestly overall, is The Abbey in the Oakwood. The Abbey is a perfect example of the darker yet no less beautiful side of Romanticism. The Monk by the Sea shows the insignificance Friedrich and other Romantics feel when compared to the vast and sublime nature. William Turner's work shows the violent emotions associated with Romanticism. The Slave Ship shows not only the violence and beauty of a storm, but also acts as a social criticism of slavery. As Romanticism was a reaction to past and contemporary cultures, many Romantics were also social critics like Turner. Delacroix's Liberty Leading the People is a perfect example of Romantic nationalism. Thomas Cole combines nationalism and nature in his works, such as The Oxbow. Here, he shows not only the beauty of American nature, but also the nationalistic spirit of manifest destiny. Music is another huge part of Romanticism. I'm going to have to go through these quickly because there are so many to list. I apologize for the bad pun. Beethoven was among the first Romantic composers. Symphony No. 5 is full of the emotion represented in the Romantic movement. Franz Liszt is often considered the epitome of Romantic. His works, such as Mephisto Waltz from the Faust Symphony, show his revolutionary music styles that would inspire countless other composers. Hector Berlioz's Symphonie Fantastique is a very significant Romantic piece, although the bizarre nature of the piece leads many to believe Berlioz composed it while under the influence of opium. Richard Wagner involved both Germanic folklore and nationalism in his works, such as his famous Die Walküre. Edvard Grieg did the same for his home of Norway with works such as Peer Gynt. The Russian composer Modest Mussorgsky was another of this vein, but he focused even more on the unnatural and emotional. Night on Bald Mountain, one of his most famous works, perfectly combines the elements of Romanticism to make a terrifying piece. Giuseppe Verdi was the leading Romantic in Italy. His works, like Requiem, combine traditional religious themes with the emotion of Romanticism. Frédéric Chopin, of course, was the best Romantic pianist. His Funeral March, Sonata No. 2, is a great example of emotional music that is not fast-paced and terrifying, but effective nonetheless. My personal favorite piece of all time was composed by Camille Saint-Saëns. His Danse Macabre combines the styles prevalent in the Romantic era, all into one terrifying piece. The Sorrows of Young Werther, by Goethe, is often considered one of the works that sparked Romanticism. Romantic literature brought a renewed interest in poetry. American poets such as Edgar Allan Poe and Nathaniel Hawthorne, and British authors such as Mary Shelley, Frankenstein, and John Polidori, Vampire, brought the supernatural back into common literature. In Britain, poets like Robert Burns and Thomas Moore brought folk literature back into the modern spotlight. Countless other works of literature were also significant in Romanticism, but I've already spent way too much time on art and music to include them here. I would highly suggest looking into it on your own, and maybe reading a little. Romanticism truly was one of the largest, if not the largest, influences on modern culture. Without Romanticism, things like landscape paintings, emotional music, or the interest in your own culture would not be near as prevalent. While the Enlightenment was necessary for the betterment of man, and the Industrial Revolution to bring us into modern technology, the Romantic era was necessary to keep what makes us human from being lost. I know this video was a big change in the military and political topics I usually do, but I think this is an important part of history too. If you liked this or didn't, please let me know. I want to make sure this channel is as enjoyable for you as it is for me. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe. This is Matthew, and I hope I'll see you next time.
Goodbye, wipe a tear, baby, from your eye. Though it's hard to part, I know. I'll be equal to death to go. Don't cry. There's a silver lining in the sky. But awful things, cheerio, chin, chin, nah,